I like salad. Do you like salad?
Hi, I'm Hostion Ho. I'm living in Vancouver, BC, Canada, unceded territory of Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. I'm an immigrant to Canada from China.
Hey everyone, I'm Andrea coming to you from Victoria, but more importantly known as unceded Akwesasne territory of the Lekwungen speaking peoples, the Songhees and Esquimalt First Nations, and I am an immigrant from the United States of America. And you're listening to
Canadian salad.
Canadian Salad.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, welcome back. Happy day. It's Tuesday,
Happy
right?
day. Yes, it's Tuesday. I don't
It's
know. Is it
Tuesday.
Tuesday?
I don't know. And some other part of the
Depends.
world, it's either Monday or Wednesday, or maybe just
True.
Wednesday.
Also depends on when they download this episode. It can be any day
That's
of the week.
right. Well, happy day of the week wherever you are. Thanks so much for listening and inviting our voices into your
Yeah.
brain.
Or happy night. Depends when you listen to
That's
this.
right. Happy
Maybe
early
you like
AM.
maybe you like to listen to us to sleep.
Yes, that's right. There are
Because you
podcasts like that. And people like literally, they're like, they make money off of making people fall asleep.
Oh
Ocean.
wow.
I
Is it like
know.
a
And they don't,
meditation thing?
well, there's one guy, he reads just random, he reads really boring history. And yeah. So anyway, but that's a
Okay.
thing.
That's the
But we're
thing.
not
That's
going to
not
be
our
boring.
thing. Yeah. That's not
We
our
are.
thing.
No. And in fact,
Yeah.
today is going to be the opposite of boring because we're going to talk about the culture of jokes and humor and really
Yes.
and make some jokes as well, but really talk about how like integrating into Canada, it is a different style of humor. People tell jokes differently. And that's a whole nother realm of experience that us as immigrants actually face and experience. Wouldn't you say?
I agree. I
Yeah.
think humor in many ways is very different if you come from a different cultural background.
Completely,
Yeah.
yeah. And we're going to explore why that is. But Hoshin, I would just love for you to maybe share kind of your experience with humor in Canada, maybe cross-cultural humor, and maybe how it's been for you to kind of understand the Western or Canadian context of the way humor is delivered from your experience.
First, I think because North American culture is really widely spread in this
Mm,
world, thanks to
yeah.
Hollywood, thanks to cultural kind of
Soft
colonialism.
colonialism.
Yeah, exactly. So
True.
it's not like I never had no idea what kind of North America humor is like. In my growing up, I always have some sort of knowledge or influence of it. So before coming to Canada, I definitely had already had a sense of it. But I think this one kind of humor coming to Canada is a really learning opportunity for me is queer humor. I find that very different
Okay.
because I think queer people use a lot of slangs and which is funny. You use a different dialogue in different situation can be really funny. And for me as a ESL, like English as a second language, is always um understanding normal words is difficult. Sometimes using slang is even more difficult.
Sure.
But so like understand those slangs as a part of humor or like understand a lot of different references, no matter it's historical or no matter it's pop culture references, also a bit difficult. But
Okay.
again, a lot of humor uses them. And then this idea of shade, like, kind of like criticizing people using a really funny way, or
Okay.
dramatic way as
Okay.
kind of humor as well. Also is like a learning or a meme.
Sure.
See, yeah,
Yes.
all this
Yeah.
kind of different humor. I
Yeah.
would categorize them as queer humor. For
Okay.
me, it takes me a long time to kind of get to it, but I would say well now I have a hang of it. And
Okay.
I also find it really funny, and
Okay.
I'm all for it. Yeah,
You just recently went to, I think, Taiwan and Hong Kong and even back to
yeah.
China, like your home in Macau. Humor there with the queer community, would you say it's very different because it's
Oh, very different.
queer
Yeah.
humor would be different there than here in Canada? Yeah.
Yeah, I would say so too. I think in general, like, yes, there's queer culture maybe more prominent in Taiwan because Taiwan is like queer, like, uh, gay marriage is legal there. So
Okay.
definitely there's way more prominent gay culture. I think only in places when there's like, the gays are allowed to be free and open, only then they have so much space for them to create this culture, to create their own ways of language, of slang, of humor. because they have that space to be. But I think if you're talking about like in Hong Kong or even in mainland China, that is another game because and
Okay.
everything's underground. They don't have that space, that tolerance mindset for them to create their own sets of language even. I mean, they do
Right.
have, it's just not as, compared to like Taiwan or here, it definitely not as developed, not as, all-rounded in my perspective. Yeah. And I
S-
think a lot of their humor also is very dirty. Uh,
Okay. Sure.
I think they find
More
dirty thing really funny.
like
My
sexual
experience,
humor in that
yeah, sexual
sense,
humor.
or
I in
okay. Okay.
Asia, at least the gay men kind of friend group that I was in, they find dirty things really funny. And a lot of them here just like very normal things we
Okay.
say, but they find it,
Interesting.
ooh, that is spicy, that is funny.
Okay.
It's okay. I mean, if you
So
find it
that's
funny,
kind
that's
of
good.
a, yeah, east-west kind of difference in that kind of humor, even though it's maybe the same genre as far as like queer humor. You do see those
Yeah.
differences. Yeah.
I definitely see
Interesting.
those differences. Yeah. Yeah. But I think that's also historical and social structure that determines some of it as well, for sure.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
huge.
what
Yeah.
about you? What is your experience? I mean, the States and Canada is so different, right? The humor,
It's
like
so different. Oh my gosh, yes, we're just so different. No, we are really the same. And we're going to talk about Western humor. But I would say for myself, I've always, and science has proven this to be true, but like laughter and humor using jokes has always helped me feel this sense of approval with another person. I've always, and whether it be a new friendship or a new conversation, or even when we started our master's program and I was meeting people from all around the globe, I always would try to create a joke or make a funny comment because I wanted to connect with this person. And for
hmm
me, laughter has always been this way to help me feel connected to someone even when I'm really uncomfortable. So I've
Okay.
I've been in other social settings in other countries where I didn't know what the social norms or the standards were. I found a lot of physical humor funny in like
hmm
India, Nepal, when I was in the Solomon Islands. Physical humor is very funny, but that more subtle humor was not something that I was very in tune with. But I knew that physical humor would always be a really great way to connect. And so I found myself acting really silly or trying to do something to really make someone laugh. But it was
Yeah.
a way for me to connect with other people. And so, yeah, so for myself though, that's kind of my experience.
I just have one question for you. So
Yeah.
I know you do like using humor or jokes to kind of break the ice. I was just curious, do you think either in professional settings that will be something that you use, like humor, to kind of connect to the other?
Yes, especially with bosses, I will try because I want to get those brownie points, if that makes sense. I want to get I want to get their, I want to be that employee pet, where I get their approval. But I've used it with because I've done a lot of customer service jobs. So I use it with customers to also make them feel more at ease and more relaxed. So humor is definitely a way to create kind of more relaxed environments. So yes, I absolutely use it in the workplace because there's so much anxiety and stress in the workplace. So
Okay, good to
yeah, but
know.
you probably wouldn't.
No, I think in Asia you would not, and I definitely would
Um,
not either. I think it's a cultural thing. I definitely
yeah,
would not, but I think that is because culturally I was kind of think, oh, this hierarchy of bosses and employee, they're really
power
different. So
dynamics.
for sure. So
Yeah,
I think in professional settings, I definitely would be not inclined to make jokes to just to break the ice or to connect one another.
yeah, that's really
See, another
interesting. And
yeah,
actually,
one
that's a
difference.
really good segue to what we're going to talk about next. So, there's actually
Oh.
been a lot of research around Eastern versus Western humor. And most of the
Mm-hmm.
papers that I found were between places like China, Taiwan, Hong Kong. And then the West, so Canada, the United States. And so there's a really good article. It comes out of Frontier Psychology. And so it was written by quite a few people, one from the University of Hong Kong, one from the Central University of Finance and Economics in China. But the paper was talking about how in Eastern contexts, so specifically
Mm-hmm.
China, Hong Kong, Taiwan, predominantly those countries, there is this Confucian doctrine of moderation. So this idea that humor is for a specific time and place, and that moderation is actually expressing extreme emotion is not socially acceptable because you're not
Mm-hmm.
moderating your emotion. You're not moderating yourself. And that's what this idea of this Confucian doctrine of moderation, because in and around that time, the king, is it King Dynasty? Qing? Am I saying it
Qing
right?
Dynasty.
Qing, thank you. The Qing Dynasty. See, anyway, the Qing Dynasty, yeah. So that was kind of the understanding. Even though like the Qing Dynasty went away, the impacts of that cultural kind of mindset and expectation remained. What I'm just curious, what are your thoughts on that? Do you agree, disagree?
I would agree. It's really situational. Only certain scenarios you are even allowed, I guess, to make jokes. And I think tend to, especially in a lot of, like, of course, with friends and in a we relaxed environment, you can do anything with
Okay,
peers. That is
right.
definitely not a problem. But like with elder, with bosses, with teachers, with anyone that is not a peer, jokes are always can be a scary attempt because then that joke, because many way jokes kind of blur out your relationship with the other person, right? It makes
Okay.
you get you closer, or you kind of blur out your boundaries between the other, because you use that to break the ice. But I think that sometimes kind of makes people that in a different kind of social relationship with you that make them comfortable. That's why I think
Interesting.
sometimes these kind of jokes or humor in non-peer relationships would be, yeah, a bit, you have to be really, think it through before you make that joke. Yeah.
Yeah. Would you say that you refrain from making jokes with people who are not maybe close peers here in Vancouver? Have you experienced, I mean, you've been here a long time, but have you
Yeah,
felt
I
more?
think now I definitely like not as much as what I just described that when I was in China. I think now I sometimes make jokes at work with my boss. I do sometimes do it with strangers even more. But I definitely not as much as people here, like born and raised Canadian. I do realize sometimes at work, born and raised Canadian definitely are more bold. You my own way, like quote unquote
Yes.
bold
Yeah.
to make a lot of jokes or use humor at workplaces, and I'm definitely less like workplace in terms of to their bosses. I sometimes do, but I definitely not as much as to my peers or to even to strangers that I have no relationship with.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes okay. Yeah. Because this and the paper is really good. I highly recommend you or even other people who are listening to read it. It was done in 2016 and they did multiple studies. So they emphasize this idea behind moderation and like Eastern humor. With Western humor, though, they found that humor, and this alludes to my what I shared earlier, it's about coping. Right.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Humor is about navigating the unknown. It's seen as attractive in the West, right? If you don't have a good sense of humor, you're not very an attractive person that you want to maybe have a conversation with. And the
Yeah.
humor in the West is very self-deprecating,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's
Or you joke about
always
yourself.
joke
Yeah.
about yourself, right? You put
Yeah.
yourself down to make light or make humorous of the situation that you're experiencing. Would you say in Canada you've noticed that like that type of humor
I
in
think it's like the first, I really want to point out that the point about being like funny is a very attractive that people find in their
okay.
partners. That is definitely a cultural difference. Because I don't think in China, for example, if like you ask anyone what you find your partner attractive, I don't think most people would use funny as one of the points or one of the
Interesting.
criteria to find a
Okay.
future
Yes.
partner. But
Yeah,
here, I hear that very often.
it
So I think I
is.
want to echo to that point that I do agree with. And also the self-deprecating part, I think is it's the two spectrums of that. Yes, you had jokes that people that like to self-deprecate themselves jokes, and you have the other side of people who praise themselves like, um very,
Okay.
you
So
know,
like yeah, I
yeah,
guess
well, of
making
course
jokes
I'm the
about how
best.
great I
Yeah.
am. Yes.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
okay,
as a
okay.
joke.
Interesting.
Yeah. But
Yes.
I guess if you really see sometimes that maybe use it as a sarcasm, maybe you can also say that is also part of the self-deprecation. Because if they
True.
say those things as sarcasm, then you would be. But
Right.
yes, I definitely see that happen, like that is happening in Canada.
Yeah, yeah. That's interesting because but it is very that self-focus, like you said. It might be the extreme, like I'm amazing, but then it might be, oh, I'm this awful person, but I'm gonna
Yeah,
make a joke
yeah.
anyway. And it's
Yeah.
interesting you mentioned the dating. So there was a study done by Canadian immigrant. They conducted a study in 2018 and 19, and they actually interviewed over 60 people in Vancouver who use dating sites or apps to find romantic partners. So
Mm-hmm.
they interviewed people who were Canadian born and people who were actually Chinese immigrant respondents. 81%, 81% of Canadian born respondents indicated humor was important in finding a potential partner, to your
Mm-hmm.
point,
Mm-hmm.
while
Yeah.
less than 20% of those surveyed who were Chinese immigrants responded that humor actually wasn't, it was important, but it wasn't huge. They didn't really care.
Yeah.
So this idea that it is attractive, and I remember because I met my husband online as well.
Yeah.
And on the site, I had to put the things that I want in an ideal partner.
Yeah.
It was loves to hike, great relationship with family, funny, you know, and
Funny.
and 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 that was the determinant. Like I wanted a good sense of humor because if he's not going to have a good sense of humor, I don't want to be with someone who's boring and like, snoozy. So I thought that was an interesting article or even research that they had found that like actually when you do compare, like to your point, it is considered an attractive trait here in Canada.
I agree. I constantly being called funny. And then they're, oh my God, that is so funny. You're so funny. That's very attractive. I was like, okay, that is always like it definitely
You're
was a
like,
new thing.
thanks. Yeah,
Thank you.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it's definitely is a new thing that was not, used to. So okay, I guess that
Interesting.
it gets people to like you. Here.
Here.
And I don't think necessarily that being funny makes you necessarily like a popular person in China, I would say.
Okay. I'll
Yeah,
remember that when
here.
I go. I'll try not to crack any jokes, or I'll just lean on, maybe you or your mom if I'm able
Yeah,
to
just
travel with you. To be like, can I say this right now? And you're like, no, no, just don't, just stop,
not
just stop
not not
bothering me.
not this scenario. Not with
Do
this
not be
person.
Western. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Just be quiet. What's interesting too is there was another study. I know we love studies and research, everyone, but there was another study that came out of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. And in 2019, they analyzed commonalities between creativity and humor. Because in order to be humorous, you have to be creative, right? You have to think
Yeah.
about wordplay, context, does this fit kind of a thing. And they actually found that people with multicultural backgrounds, so people who are from more than one cultural background, actually have a deeper sense of humor than those from monocultural backgrounds. So they found that actually you have more cognitive flexibility, right? Like your
Mm-hmm.
brain can kind of rubber band around different cultural contexts, and you're able to see humor through different ways, which actually creates your ability to combine ideas and concepts and be funny because you can
Yeah.
make sense of situations in a much better way than let's say someone who's I'll just use the United States for an example because I think it's a very small population that has a passport. um but yeah, I think but it's true because you do, and you probably can attest to this, Hoshin, like living in China and even living in Canada, but even United States, you
Yeah.
probably you're able to navigate these social nuances much better, and you can see humor in a different way than I can, or let's say, someone who's born in Canada.
I think being multicultural in many ways equips because cultural is how to say this. Being multicultural means that you have some sense at least you don't have to like necessarily very deeply understand every culture, but at least you have some sort of
Sure.
understanding of every culture, right? And jokes and humor are part of that culture. So even maybe at first, like I said, when I first came to North America, I was a bit confused because it's a reference was used in humor, and I was like, I don't know what that was. I don't know who that person was. I don't know who that book was. Why is that funny?
Right.
But eventually you will get it. And then you realize, oh, people find that funny. And then so you'll maybe subconsciously adapt to it. And then,
Right.
okay, then you'll make more reference jokes, make more, shady jokes, criticizing people using funny things or dramatic ways or sarcasm.
Right.
I think your environment slowly, even though you're not consciously want to be funny, but your
Mm-hmm.
environment, you absorb this environment, these ways of how people find it funny.
Mm-hmm.
Especially in North America, I would say, because we just explored that being funny makes you popular, makes people to like you. I think
Right.
as a people pleaser like me, well,
Yeah, me too.
yeah, and
Yeah.
then we thought, oh, that people like me if I make jokes like that, or I'd be funny. So I would kind of maybe consciously and subconsciously try to absorb as much joke or as possible, so I can be funnier, so people will like me more.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so that is a part of that as well.
I mean, that is part of integration too, right? Because you want to be accepted,
People
you
to like,
want to
yeah.
be liked and included. So you do find ways, maybe subconsciously or consciously, to make that entrance into the community group or into this kind of, cultural context, right? Just to kind of segue, we're going to go to like jokes, but there's a lot of immigrants in Canada who are rising from the ground up and actually using humor as a way to showcase their humor, to talk about things that are really, really important. In 2017, there was an article that came out in the Toronto Star, and they were highlighting immigrant comics who are drawing on personal experiences. And they interviewed quite a few people, one person from Brazil, one person from the Philippines, one person from Iran. And one person said that in Asian culture, we keep our emotions inside. And so
We do.
humor was definitely something that they had to learn how to communicate to their audience. Like
Mm-hmm.
actually people want emotions in Canada. People want to
Yeah.
know if you were sad, what made you happy, what made you ecstatic, what did you sound like when you were surprised, like that. And that's been a huge adjustment. One particular immigrant was saying that she's from Brazil, and Brazil is a lot of physical comedy, right? So you
Mm-hmm.
use a lot of physical, big, dramatic humor. You might use puppets or you might use um, masks, whatever it is. And she said that I quickly realized when I came to Canada, it's all about the subtlety. It's subtle humor. It's not physical and it's not
But
overly
obvious,
dramatic.
yeah.
Right. It's not
Yeah.
obvious. And so for her, that was really a huge like learning curve because she was
Mm-hmm.
just used to, well, no, this is funny. But she would be in a context with other Canadians and they're not laughing. It's very cool to see that that's happening. I mean, and the other thing is like we've talked about jokes a little bit, but when someone tells me a joke that is a joke that's funny in their hometown or their culture, it doesn't equally translate. And I want to read this brief little story. So this is from Localizing Jokes. It's an article that came out in LinkedIn. So the story goes, John Evans was invited to give an inspirational speech in Beijing. He requested an interpreter, but he was worried that the jokes he had prepared would not be easily translated. To his utter surprise, the audience laughed overexcitedly at his every joke. When the
Mm-hmm.
session was over, John approached the interpreter and praised his excellent translation skills of such subtle humor. He asked, "How did you manage to get all those jokes across?" He asked the interpreter. And the translator said, "Oh, I didn't bother," he said. "I just said, he's making a joke now, please laugh." This
That is
idea, isn't
funny.
that funny though? Like
But
the
I
chair.
want to say, I want to, so sorry, I just want to
Yeah,
say one thing is, as also I used to be a translator, that's exactly what I do as
you
well.
did.
No, I did many
Did
times,
you?
especially a lot of foreigners like to make jokes at meetings, which
Yeah,
usually, as I mentioned in China, not necessarily work. So sometimes when they make a joke, I usually just tell, I'll just, I'll say, oh, he just make a joke, and yeah, you can just laugh a little bit. And then they would,
that's so
translate
funny.
into language, and they would laugh a little bit. In class as well, when I was in Royal Roads, I also was translating for classes to Chinese students, and I was do the same. If the prof make a joke, I also just tell the translate to the
That
student,
is
oh, he
so
just make
funny.
they make a joke, just laugh. And they
That's
will laugh.
so funny. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Because, yeah,
I-
within those bigger settings, that's not necessarily appropriate. But as a collective culture, right, you don't want to shame the person. You want to honor the person that's in your midst. So you just laugh out of good merit and kindness. I mean, is what it
Yeah.
sounds like, because you don't want to at all, because there is this idea of reverence, like this is a speaker, this is a teacher, and we're going to like do what we can to appease.
Yeah.
So that's so interesting.
It's very common. I don't think
Yeah.
just me, a lot of translator, like in China at least, that I know that we do similar things because
Yeah.
joke is first is very hard to translate.
Yeah.
And if I did sometimes explain jokes, if especially in Royal, sometimes when student would ask, oh, if I say, oh, he just the teacher just make a joke, just laugh. Some of the student would, oh, what joke is that? And we're trying to explain a little bit. And then
Yeah.
there's, oh, okay. You should just, oh, okay. They would just again, like it's not easy
What
to
are you going to do?
translate.
Yeah, no, it's
Yeah.
not. No. I mean, we talked about it. Like there's different wordplay and culture is a huge thing. There's idioms, there's
References,
slang.
wordplay. Yeah.
Yeah. And humor in the West Coast, even versus like maybe places like Saskatchewan or Manitoba, there's going to be different cultural ways of telling jokes there, even Quebec. Like from east central to west, right? There's going to be just variants wherever you go, even in Canada. There's a lot of jokes about Canada, but a lot of those are jokes about very specific parts of Canada that aren't
Mm-hmm,
necessarily
mm-hmm,
related to maybe the West Coast or the Yukon or, other parts, right? So but it is interesting because I mean you can tell a joke word for word, but it gets lost in that translation. So just to kind of conclude, I think laughter, regardless of your cultural background, regardless of where
mm-hmm,
you're at in your phase of life, I feel like it is a form of social cohesion. We talked a little bit about how Canadian immigrants are using comedy and humor. They're rising up within Canada, but many of them say that the reasons that they are doing that is because they want to address these stereotypes that come with them coming to Canada, right? A
mm-hmm,
stereotype that, we talked about the model minority myth, like, oh, well, you're Asian, you're very quiet, right?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Where people are saying, you know what, I'm going to take that stereotype, which is not true of me at all, and I'm
mm-hmm,
actually going to make a joke about it. One person said in this news article that came out in 2019, said that the enjoyment Canadians get out of immigrant humor comes from seeing their own country's quirks from an outsider's perspective. Because the reality is that sometimes I don't think people really realize how ridiculous they are. Like, I think fundamentally, humanity is
mm-hmm.
quite ridiculous. You
We
talk to
are
any
funny.
kid, right? Like, and okay, I'm just gonna get a bit of potty humor here, but like my son loves poop and pee jokes. And when you really think about it, and you think about the human butt, and you think about pooping, like honestly, it is very funny and ridiculous. It is just
We're
absolutely funny,
kids.
right?
Yeah.
But it makes sense. And I'm not saying that like I think that that's the humor is really really great. But what I am saying is like sometimes we take ourselves so seriously, and I
Yeah.
think there is an element of like when we really look at ourselves, there's a lot to laugh about.
Yeah. We have a lot of laugh at for spam.
And we see this in media where, the minor characters are people who are of the ethnic majority, right? The global
Mm-hmm.
majority, right?
Yeah.
It's, oh, they're the humorous sidekick friend. Oh, they're the
Mm-hmm.
funny guy at work, right? So there's just these stereotypes, and you don't see immigrants or people from the global majority having those lead roles. And I feel
Mm-hmm.
like that representation and seeing that, oh, there's someone from the Philippines who's like the lead role in this show. That means a
Mm-hmm.
lot. That means that like actually my culture can actually be understood. So if you're not in Canada or living, I don't know where to find these, to be honest, but that's on you. So take a look. But one is called Abroad. So it is directed and written by Filipino immigrants to
Oh.
Canada. And so, yeah, it's a humorous look at how immigrants think, perceive, and deal with living in Canada. That's on Omni TV. There's a show called Newcomer Rise Up, and that's
Mm-hmm.
on a YouTube channel, specifically New Canadians TV. It's a network on YouTube, and it celebrates 12 Canadian immigrants and refugees owning their unique skills, experiences, and identity to build inclusive communities and to thrive. Another popular one, which maybe a lot of people are aware of, is Kim's Convenience, which is
Mm.
on Netflix.
Oh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a good one. Korean culture and everything like that.
Yeah.
And then if you do watch Apple TV, I highly recommend Little America. Little America is these short stories about immigrants who came to America and how they integrated, how they adapted, how they survived for many of them.
Yeah.
So there's humor in there, but it's not necessarily a humorous show. But these are just some of the
Mm-hmm.
ways in which I think if laughter is a form of social cohesion, I do feel like it is a way that we can really connect with one another, laugh at all of our own ridiculousness because we're all humans,
Yeah.
and find that sense of connection. It was the Journal of Nonverbal Behavior in 2017 that basically came out with a conclusion that people who laugh together, they like each other more. So if you're
Yeah.
laughing with people, you actually develop those friendships. It creates bonds and intimacy. And in particular, one quote, laughter is an external signal that tells others and yourself that it's going to be okay. It
Yeah.
might be a form of survival, but it is a way of saying, you know what, I'm here, I'm going to be all right. Whatever's happening, it's going to be okay. Question
Yeah.
for you, like what would you say would help someone who's maybe new to Canada or trying to navigate Canadian society and culture and they want to maybe they want to create that cohesion and that connection. They want to try humor. Like, would you have any, I don't know, thoughts about or encouragement for them doing that?
I think, yeah, as you mentioned, I think people should watch a lot of like this kind of funny shows, maybe if you want to be, catch some drift of
Yes,
how
sure.
what people find it funny.
Hmm.
I remember I watched a lot of Friends when I was younger. I think
Oh,
that's a
really?
lot of my kind of North American
Wow.
humor from.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Friends. That's so funny. Okay.
I mean, there's 10 seasons of it and there's a
There
lot of
are 10
episodes.
seasons.
So
There are. Oh my gosh.
I definitely learned a lot of humor from there. And I also like Fresh Off the Boat, talking about immigrant kind of comedy shows. I also
Okay.
recommend that. It's quite funny.
Okay.
There's also a movie called Joy Ride. It's all Asian cast, also quite funny, a
Okay.
show. There's also North American humor, but both shows, one movie, one TV show, both Asian
This is
casts.
great. Yeah.
Yeah, they're really funny. I like them at least. That's one to watch. And second, I think is if you find friends that you like that are funny, maybe be with them. Like try to hang out with them more. Because
Be with your friends.
influence,
Yeah.
yeah, be with your funny friends, or
Yeah.
find funny friends.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
I find doesn't the easiest influence is to have it
Right.
around you all the time, right?
Hmm.
And I think that would be the easiest way for me to kind of get a gist of what kind of humor is like here.
Hmm.
The easiest way for me, at least.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
that's good. I appreciate that. Yeah. Because it's true. If you find a friend that's funny, that'll help kind of that soft entrance into maybe
Yeah.
groups or social circles that you want to get into. That's really going to help, especially if you have a
Exactly.
partner that's humorous, that does help
Oh, that
too.
would be better. Yeah.
Yes,
I think
yeah.
my partner
So
is quite funny too, but I'm definitely the
yeah,
funnier one in a
you are pretty
relationship.
funny. It's true. I've known you. Yeah.
Right, you're welcome.
No, thank you.
See, that is
Well,
humor.
yeah, it is. It is. I know.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. So, well, that's our episode. And rather than do a quiz, I thought it would be appropriate that we each told a joke.
Okay. I have a
So,
joke.
okay, do you want to go first or should I go first?
I can go first. My joke
Okay.
is, well, you have to kind of speak Cantonese to know the joke, but
Here.
I would
This
like
is
to make
fun.
it because I hope all our Cantonese listeners will understand this joke. Let's hope
Okay.
so. It's
Of
a
us
test.
Western people may not,
Oh,
but this is the example I want to be. So you may not understand it, but you're gonna listen and you're gonna
I'll
find,
explain. Yeah.
yeah, no, this is good. This is good. All
I'm
right.
gonna explain to
Don't
you,
know
and
that.
then you will
Okay.
know why we find it funny, so you
Okay.
understand culturally how we see a joke, how we understand
Okay.
humor. So it's
Awesome.
a learning opportunity for people who do not understand
Yes.
Cantonese.
Yes.
Yes.
Exactly.
So
Okay.
it's kind of like a riddle, but it's a joke. The riddle is Star Wars.
Okay.
Star Wars, the movie, the
Yes,
franchise.
I do know the
Um,
movie. Yes.
yeah, that's the riddle, and then it's more about the weapon of that you use in Star
Okay.
Wars. And then the
Okay.
answer is banana and bean sprouts, because
Okay.
banana in Cantonese is jiu, and
Chew.
then
Chew.
jiu jiu jiu
Chew.
jiu 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 is like the laser guns in Star
Uh-huh.
Wars.
Okay.
That's jiu,
Okay.
which is banana.
Okay.
Excuse me. And then you have bean sprouts, which is anya, which is in Cantonese, beans the word for bean sprouts, because when bomb explodes, anga, anga, anga.
Okay.
That's
Nga, nga, nga.
yeah,
Like that?
anya, yes. Now you know two words, two
Hey.
Cantonese
Chew.
words.
But what
Jiu,
I do
yeah, jiu,
okay.
yes.
Nga. Yeah.
Anga.
No. Yeah. Okay. So say it in Cantonese. Can you just say it? I want to hear it.
OK，
Yeah.
謎語呢個笑話係謎語嚟嘅啫。謎語係星球大戰，猜一種水果同埋一種蔬菜，答案係香蕉，因為蕉，同埋銀牙，譬如佢銀牙就好似係炸彈爆炸咁樣。That's the
Nice.
joke.
I heard it. I did. I did hear it. It was towards
Yeah,
the end. So
yeah.
yeah,
You you
nice.
you, you heard蕉and
I did. I did.
Yeah.
Okay. That's so great. I honestly wish I knew Cantonese anyway, because that's the fully immersive experience that I'm craving, right? I
Yeah.
want to know all the things, but thank you for sharing that joke, Ocean.
No
That's really
problem.
funny.
Yeah. To loop back our last episode, actually, maybe you should learn a language. You
That's
understand more
true. That's
humor.
true. I should, yes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know Spanish and I know American. So I'm learning English slowly. And so I should take another language. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so my joke is going to be a joke about America. So it's between Canada and America. So I thought, let's be very Western and self-deprecating because I'm from the States.
Yes.
So, okay. So a Canadian visits America and gets held at gunpoint by a stranger. That's not the joke, actually.
Okay.
It keeps
It's
going.
reality.
But it is the reality, unfortunately. The stranger says, "Give me all your money and I'll let you live." The Canadian replies gleefully, "Oh, you must be what they call a doctor.
A
Give me
doctor.
all your money and I'll let you live," because
Oh,
you have to pay for healthcare in America.
yes. Okay. Very sad, but
It
true.
is sad
It's
but
funny because
true.
it's true.
It is. And that's, thank you. Yes, humor. Exactly. Exactly. So, well, thank you everyone so much for listening. We hope you really enjoyed humor and you had some good laughs. If not, then maybe you should, I don't know, have more humorous friends.
But
Hoshin, do you want
develop
to
a sense of humor.
or develop a sense of humor? Come on,
Because
life is
we are
short.
hilarious. I don't know
We
what you're
are. I
thinking.
know. I
Yeah.
listen to our podcast over and I laugh. So that's just me. So anyway.
It's just
um
like listening to your voice.
no, it's your voice.
Oh my God, really?
I
And
know
for me,
it
it's your
is.
voice.
Oh my gosh,
Your
your voice
voice
makes me
made
fall
me laugh.
asleep. Yeah, so much. Hoshin,
Yes.
do you want to share what our next episode is going to be about?
Our next episode is did I open? Oh, our next episode, yes. Our next episode is gonna be a language of money. We're gonna talk about
Ooh.
money and how it
Mm.
is kind of treated or how is preserved in different culture.
Interesting. I am really excited about this. So
Mm-hmm,
I'm
mm-hmm.
probably maybe we'll play a song. Money, 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 money.
Anything about the money, money, money.
There you go.
Do
There
you
you
know
go.
that
See?
song?
No, I don't. I don't.
Jessie J.
I
Anything
probably
about the
should. I
money,
should know it.
money, money.
I should know it. Yeah. Maybe
Oh,
we're
you should
singing
not
the
know
same
it.
song.
I
I
don't
don't
think
know.
so. But okay.
Okay. Well,
We're a
everyone,
decade apart.
yeah, we are a decade apart, culturally and generationally. We've got a lot of differences going on. It's pretty great, but that's why I love
Yeah.
you. But everyone, please do share with us with your friends and family. Leave us a comment on our social media. That helps the algorithm just get our reels and our posts going through.
Yeah,
Yes. And then rate us on where you listen to your podcast. Let us know what you're thinking and drop us a line.
please. And our social media is Canadian Salad. Find
Mhm,
us on Instagram, and our email
mhm.
is hello@canadiansalad.ca.
That's right. That's right. That was lovely said. All right.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Well, my love, and well, all my little loves out there, have a wonderful rest of your week, and we will talk to you next week. Take
We talk to you
care.
next week. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Canadian Salad is written and produced in British Columbia, Canada by Hoshin Ho and Andrea McCoy. Theme music is by Naver Avatyan from Pixabay.
This has been a good Drinklin production.